For posting on YouTube. This meeting is also available and being recorded electronically on Microsoft Teams. And in accordance with Resolution 20-2023, the rules of conduct for public meetings and public comment periods shall be observed and are listed at the bottom of the agenda. We have two public comments portions during this meeting, and those comments are to be limited to 3 minutes each. We'll now move forward to approve the minutes from the March 27th meeting of the Planning Commission. I'd like to ask for a motion and a second. Have a motion? Have a second? Any questions or comments or corrections to the minutes from March 27th? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes from March 27, 2025, signify by saying aye. Are there any opposed? We'll now move to our public comment section. You do not have a sign in, so we'll start on this side.
Mike, 1931 Creek Road. The current president at Brook Speedway. Standing here tonight with immense gratitude and pride, not just as president of the Brook Speedway, but as a neighbor, fellow community member, and someone who truly believes in what we have built together at Brook Speedway. I want to thank you for your unwavering support, and I'm thrilled to share that D.R. Hortons willing to allow us to come alongside them to keep the Speedway where we're at. In a world where corporate greed or corporate interest often overpowers community values, it's not a small feat. As you know, you've seen me here an awful lot. Put a lot of time and hours into this. Really though, the Planning Commission can provide some good feedback on what they're going to plan, what they're going to present tonight. As the ownership issue over the Speedway is based on them having a compliance plan that will eventually get approved after they meet all their requirements. Furthermore, I would really like to say thank you to Charles Klien, current owner of the property there, for letting us race on his property for the last 40 years. Without people like him, racetracks would be going a long time ago. Other than that, thank you guys, Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, and the community for sticking with us, trying to keep the racetrack alive. And so that's all I got. Thanks, guys.
So Mike, can you have you here for this Speedway? Raise their hand or stand up.
Thank you.
We'll continue with anyone else that has public comment on the left side.
Now, normally I don't come up and stand for this stuff, so you gotta forgive me, Gary. Gotta retighten my leg. The price for freedom of speech, you know? We appreciate it.
We can hand you the microphone if you're prefer to sit down.
I just didn't have it on site, sorry. I'm talking tonight just to plant the seed for a text amendment in Ewer Township. A little background.
Could you just give
Oh, I'm sorry. Skip the Gary, 163 Township Line Road, Elverson, PA.
Thank you.
I've been going to the West Anthill Township, Elverson Borough, Carnarvon heavily, just trying to get out the facts of the anaerobic co-digester and the waste material from it. I only had 3 minutes, I can't give you my whole history, but I'm actually considered a subject matter expert when it comes to waste, hazardous waste, transportation, and I farm from about 75 up through 2000, and I own a small farm. Understanding the material and what it is, it quite often contains the waste material. It contains microplastics, PFAS, which is forever chemicals, carcinogenics, etc. Heavy metals, that's very normal for the material. It's food waste. It goes into an anaerobic digester. It's supposed to be put in 10% in order they don't have the capacity for it. It's a Kirkland Farm is where they want to put it. They just withdrew. They had 87 deficiencies by the DEP. I was on a meeting with the DEP today. They withdrew their application and they're going to submit a whole new one. So hopefully Carnarvon can do a text amendment. I've been meeting with the school about this several times. So Gary's very familiar with me. Just trying, is this stuff, it's karst soil over there, it's sandy loam, and karst bedrock is used. And then this stuff goes right down, will go right down to the water supply, in my professional opinion. I have my own environmental cleanup business, trucking company, clean up hazardous waste, not hazardous waste. And then when I went in the Army knew what I did before. As an officer there, they made me I was an environmental program manager for them. So if you guys decide you want to look at putting in a tax amendment, try to limit the spread of it, as other townships have done in the state of Pennsylvania to try to get ahead of this, by all means, let me. If you want any of my advice or opinion or whatnot, I'm glad to help out. That's about it. Stop. One other note. One of their facilities, they only have 6 like this. One of their facilities had 52 deficiencies in 4 years. After those 52 deficiencies, and it's very hard to find this information out, after those 52 deficiencies, they had a release of 51,000 cubic feet of the biogas, the methane. After that, they had a spill of 1.4 million gallons of the effluent, the wastewater, which they call digestate. All that contains these other, can contain these materials I'm talking about. So that's the kind of company they're made, it's owned by BlackRock, and it's made to squeeze the blood out of a rock as far as hard tax dollars and money. So thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. Valerie?
Valerie Schultz, 165 Street Report. I just want to say, in looking at the draft plan, it is not obvious that the racetrack is on there. So I'd like confirmation from D.R. Horton tonight that that in fact is going to be part of the plan that's going to go into final approval when you get to that phase, because I want that commitment up front before this gets approved to make sure that they do stick to their word on that. And the other question is, I saw that they have 15% open space that they are going to commit to this active recreational area. I wonder if the D.R. Horton, if the racetrack is going to add into that overall open space amount or not, or that it's separate. I also had a question about the location of the recreational areas. There is a baseball field and a tot lot all out by the road. I could see some kids whacking those baseballs and going right out onto 322, which would be a disaster. The other question I have is how we're going to mitigate all of the traffic nightmare that this is going to create with the trailer park extension across the street and the additional townhomes down the road. We already have Chestnut Tree. That's a death trap trying to get out there. Now if they're going to come out with an exit onto Cupola, which is a very small narrow road, now we're going to have an issue with traffic coming out on Cupola, a substantial amount. And we already have issues with Southford Down. So how are we going to manage a lot of congestion in that tiny little area? And just managing, traffic lights and things like that. So I think that was all I have, but I just would like to make sure that D.R. Horton is in fact going to live up to their promise, because I think it is extremely important that we keep the racetrack. So thank you guys for helping to make sure the racetrack stays. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else on the left side? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
If you want to sit.
Erin Custom Force. I have a little bit of problem about the overworking period. This land has been up for sale for many, many years because of wetlands, bogs, bog, water, wetlands. They just went and bought 3.1, I don't know, I think it was $3.1 million down in Brooksville to build developments down there. We need to protect our land. The Pennsylvania Constitution states that we need to keep open space for our future kids and bring in all these developments in, the trailer parks, Keystone development. They tore down Make Win, townhouses there, and they want to do this. D.R. Horton is by far the worst developers out there. They're going to come in and they're going to do their crappy shit like they always do, and They deal, and then we have to deal with it. It's gonna devalue our property. There's other places to go. Leave some land open for our children to have. You know, they don't need this. Leave the racetrack alone. Let everything the way it was.
Thank you. Anyone else on the left-hand side?
Hi, my name is Christine. I'm in Borough, former township resident. And I'm here because I care deeply about the direction our whole community wants to go in. I want to talk about the development and the impact that it can have on traffic, but on buildings, our families, our roads, which are crappy, and one of the most cherished local spaces, Speedway. And I'm not a member, but we drive by, and I just had a son, so maybe I will become a member if it's, still there. My concern is safety. The traffic, it has a traffic impact study been conducted, wondering, and that includes all the projects, expansions, not just that one, the main question. Route 322 already struggles with congestion. It's a nightmare trying to pull out of my driveway all the time. Actually, I almost got hit by a trash truck because they weren't paying attention. And with one light, that's really not enough with all of these homes coming in, and you're adding more families. Most people who are not locals, they're not going to respect our culture. They're not going to respect the town. And certainly not the Amish and or the Illinois community. Now, what's also being done to ensure the safety for Amish W's, motorcyclists, because we've got a lot of them, as well as bicyclists, if that's even a word, and children walking or biking, what has been done. So the next thing is this development following all other zoning guidelines? Are there any variances being requested? And if so, have they been shared with the public for feedback? Lastly, Honeyburg Speedway isn't just a racetrack, especially to everyone who is here representing it. It is a home for growth, sportsmanship, and family connections. I'm sure these kids have met friends from all different areas. They've seen their kids learn how to race, probably, get hurt, get back up, and continue on. It's obviously a part of their identity. Now, with land protection, has the township explored options to preserve the land under community recreation or chronic green space? Can the Speedway, it's included in there, but can it be included in any local and or state level preservation programs or designated under a convention or compensation easement? And lastly, I feel like I keep saying this, has there been any consideration of applying for a nonprofit grant?
You need to wrap it up in 3 minutes, Joe.
I'm wrapping up. But whoever is the president of this, I'd definitely like to talk to you, because if I could write a grant for you guys, definitely will. I'm coming in swinging for you guys, even though I don't know any of you. Well, a few faces, but that's all I have.
Next to you right there. Anyone else on the left? Move to the right. Anyone on the right side have anything to say?
Sorry about that. Get ready for the going works. Good evening. My name is Michel Klien. Okay, a United States Army combat veteran. I'm here with my wife and my son, Walker Klien. Future race car. I grew up here at Honeybrook, Maybe. But in every way that matters. This track wasn't just asphalt and fences. Or even just a place passing by to my left, or to my right. I know where you're coming from. It was a place where I learned responsibility, discipline, and what it means to be a part of a community. It's where I fell in love with racing. Where I spent every weekend with my family. Where the best of friendships were forged on pit road, staging area, played matchbox cars in the dirt, in which I never had that with any of the kids in school or even anywhere. And where lifelong memories were made. For all of us here tonight, Honeycrook Speedway is more than a hobby or a weekend event. It is home. It's a safe haven for kids, where kids like I once can channel their energy into something productive, learn mechanical skills, and feel like a sense of belonging. It's where families bond, spectators cheered, and generations passed down a passion that deeply rooted in tradition and love. To consider shutting down the track is to take away a piece of our identity. Just like a piece of me died on a mountain of Afghanistan and Iraq, and I don't wish that feeling on anybody. I wouldn't be the man I am today without this track. It's not just a racetrack. It's a community heartbeat. And once it's gone, there's no getting it back. All I ask of you all, and with my racing family at my side, please reconsider any decisions that would lead to its closure. And for the sake of the past we cherish, and the future that still needs a place like this to grow. It's not about us anymore. It's about the kids. It's for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Shady, 410 North Burdell Road. First off, thank you in advance, members of the Planning Commission, for sticking up for this community. You're truly our first line of defense, and we count on you. So thank you. I hope you can do everything you can to keep this a tranquil and rural, especially rural tonight, a place to live. I know the November meeting, you guys clearly stated to the applicant that the community and the supervisors and the Planning Commission all want the racetrack to stay. Looking at the plan tonight, I don't see a racetrack. I also don't see parking for any of these houses. I don't see trees. I see a bunch of houses crammed in really close together. And I see a neighborhood that's going to have a lot of contention in it because everybody's going to be getting in everybody else's way. That is not going to be tranquil. That is not going to be rural. So I hope these are things that can be sorted out in this. Developers going above and beyond to take care of the community from which they're going to be profiting. So perhaps we can hear something about that tonight. Where are they doing more than the bare minimum? And for anybody else here who's taking the time to come out tonight, there's lots of people who showed up here to support the racetrack, to oppose this massive influx in our community. That's going to have impacts in our schools, in our sewage bills, in our taxes. And if people come here with concerns tonight, I hope very much that they're not shy and may take their turn. It is their right to come up here and have their voice heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shane. Anyone else on the right side? Okay, then we'll move into the DR Horton Sketch, which is the next item on the agenda, and I believe
Yes, sir. Good evening. Kay Fox from Overwire on behalf of the applicant DR Horton. Jeff Strauss from DR Horton and Connor Shivitz from Maine Pool are also here. To walk through, just to answer some of the questions. So the plan shows a 5-acre parcel to be subdivided off and deeded to the racetrack. I know it's difficult to see, but in the light gray lines, that actually shows the existing improvements of the racetrack. Also in this area, we're showing 2 tennis courts, a top lot, 2 basketball courts, 3 pickleball courts, a flat ball field, and a baseball field. Those are public amenities that will be serving this community, but would also be open to the public and dedicated to the township for public use. What we're looking to do tonight, we did hear the feedback loud and clear from members of the Planning Commission and members of the community that there's no development without the racetrack. So what we're proposing, again, is the subdivision. We envision this proceeding, one with a minor subdivision plan to subdivide off the racetrack parcel, and separately a major subdivision plan to go through the approval process. So this is just a sketch plan. We're really looking for feedback this evening to give us a thumbs up to go forward and design the land development plans for submission, review, and hopefully eventual approval. As noted, there's some concerns about the density. We're showing 208 units, but once we do full land development designs, in all likelihood that number is going to drop because we do have to show things like parking, make sure the stormwater facilities are adequate. So this is just to show a by right plan, conceptual layout of the development, and all the amenities. Most importantly, that the racetrack is indeed deeded off and will be its own standalone parcel. For the first time, I think the racetrack would own the dirt under the track. So that's the general overview. We haven't put together a list of waivers as this is just a sketch, but given what we're doing, we would hope that this would be a project that would have to first go through the review. We would hope that it would be considered as a preliminary final submission. So we've taken significant time to go from November to this point. We'll then have to go into land development design. And there are some particulars and things like that we'll have to work out with the township and the racetrack folks as far as access and things like that to make sure that every concern is addressed and taken care of. Are there any questions or is there any feedback?
I think we'll start. I think we'll let our engineer, let Jen go through her comments, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the planning commission members.
Sure. This sketch plan was not submitted for a normal sketch plan review with the planning commission usually sees, so you do not have a review letter from me. I did look at it in general, just for items you guys may want to highlight, discuss, or provide input on. In general, the lot areas that are shown for the individual lots do meet the minimum lot area requirements for those. They are showing on their zoning chart that the minimum required open space area is 15%. Proposed is listed as 27%. There were not clear indications on here of what areas are open space to meet our requirements. So that is the thing that come as part of the full review. But as noted, they are showing those recreational facilities down along 322. The intention of those, I believe, would be dedication to the township as a park area. And again, that lot would be subdivided off for the racetrack. I believe the intention is to keep it balanced, that you would almost run that minor subdivision plan, could get conditionally approved in concept, but there would be a condition on there that that plan wouldn't be recorded until DR Horton has their conditional approval on this plan, just to, you know, keep the balance for the benefit to both parties through there. Just my couple general zoning and salary comments looking added in general that the planning commission may want to consider. Driveways need to be at least 18 or 20 foot wide. The setback from the right-of-way line is 25, so there'll be 2 side-by-side parking spaces in the driveways to meet the base parking requirement. It looks like the roadway may only be shown here 24 foot wide. I recommend it being 28 and 30 foot wide, so you can have parking on one side of the street, since the individual lots are more or less limited to 2 parking spaces. It appears sidewalks are shown on both sides of the proposed street. They also want to consider, and there's a requirement in the salary for sidewalk along the property frontages, just to connect those recreational facilities and, you know, the 2 parking areas for community members that would be utilizing both, sections of the park. There's an empty triangular lot over near lot 55, so just a question is, what was the intention of that? You know, whether perhaps the planning commission feels it would be a good spot just for an internal, you know, little playground area, recreational facility, just for, you know, that community itself. There will need to be cluster mailbox locations, you know, added into the plan. The postmaster for the area doesn't allow individual mailboxes anymore. They'll need to make sure that they meet all township required riparian buffers and wetland margins, as well as DEP buffers that are imposed, and we would ask that our office be included in any pre-application meetings with DEP for the NPDS permit, as well as PennDOT for the scoping meeting, and we'll be providing insight on what intersections need to be studied in the surrounding area as part of the traffic study. And there was an earlier question, that traffic study will need to take into account all development that is proposed and on the books in that area. There may be some comments on, you know, organization of the recreational facilities, you know, ensuring there's sufficient parking down there. You know, but it is a general, much better, you know, start from before we weren't seeing any recreational facilities. I think this gives a good concept level of what can fit down in that area, a starting place for the township. Did see there was a grass trail proposed. Trails need to be of a durable surface, so that can be discussed as part of the land development process. Baseball field would also need netting at the edge around the outfield to prevent foul ball damage to vehicles in the parking lot, as well as protection of traffic on 322. And I think that was most of my general comments. I would like to, before you get too far in the design, just see an overall grading plan, just showing the existing contours, watershed areas, so we can look at where your potential basins are, that those make sense. And I think that's the bulk of my comments. A lot of, you know, things get hashed out there with the preliminary plan, but any feedback that the planning commission can provide to give them their starting point for those preliminary plans, I think would help.
Yeah, and I apologize, I missed 2 things.
Yes.
There was a question about why we placed the recreation areas at this area. They're intended to be public recreation areas, not just serving this community. We thought it best to put them in the most publicly accessible place where it makes sense for folks to use a main road in the township and have easier access rather than directing traffic on the roads that aren't meant for that volume of traffic. And also, as to traffic impacts, we do have an agreement to contribute and participate in the light that's going on 322, Luke's Chestnut Tree. So that will be something that D.R. Horton is participating in, and
Correct.
One more, but that's,
It appears that the owners of the property at West Neighborhood Township next door to the light industrial facility have obtained the HOP already, or close to the HOP for that traffic light already, so that some will be excluded from our analysis, and PennDOT's going to be showing that, and we'll participate with those folks for the installation of that. And I would mention that it is a full redesign of the intersection, the road is being fully realigned, so the cockeyed angles and everything are being straightened out. Coming west on 322, there'll be a right-hand turn lane, so it'll basically not impede traffic with the yield sign coming up for any other traffic. The other items that PennDOT has discussed with us is that our entrance, there's going to be some minor widening road, but most of this is going to be striping, and then there's additional requirement at Cupola Road intersection with 322 as well for striping as well. So we'll share that with the township engineers as we get further along, but that's one portion of the plan that's relatively advanced due to the actions of others.
One of the study intersections, when we're talking about the HOP, is we hear, there was a crash that probably supports it, is Burbell Road. That's an intersection that we probably heard more about that intersection from a safety standpoint. So I would hope that that's in the study area.
It was in the study area, however, PennDOT excluded that from any action to be required for the subdivision.
So have you been through your scoping process yet?
Yes.
And we weighed in, the township has weighed in, as far as that intersection is concerned?
That I would have to talk back with Mike about those conversations during the other iterations of this plan, of whether or not we gain input.
Well, my suggestion is that we would go back to PennDOT and have them reconsider whatever it is, as a bad intersection.
According to Mike, we didn't do it at the time. I don't know what the input was or whether PennDOT made it step, but we did get input from the initial studies.
And was that based on the previous plan that had 400 some units
Yeah.
showing?
Yeah, that was actually based on the 386 units, so we're decreasing 40+% density on the site, so that'll just improve the numbers. Also, at that point, the 386 unit plan had a entrance going into Chestnut Tree Drive that has now been removed from the project, so it lessened the impact on that particular road.
So can you get to work this thing?
Yeah, I'm done. So if you guys would like to.
And the only other comment I might offer, Jen, with regard to your comment about the road front improvement on 322 and the sidewalks. As we get further into the weeds on this thing, we understand that's part of the ordinance that maybe we will request what we'll be asking for, because we're trying to do connectivity away from 322. We're trying not to encourage pedestrian traffic on that road at this point. And the plans that we have now, there's internal walkways, crosswalks, all off-street parking for the playground facilities. So that's something we'll discuss as we get further. We just felt there was a significant safety issue. We establishing sidewalks on a busy highway, and that basically needs to know our numbers.
You okay, just start to with my list and just keep going around?
Yeah.
At one point, we talked about a building, an EMS building. Is there any space along 322 that could be available for, and maybe something in the future? The concern that I have with the facilities, there's no building, there's no storage, there's no bathrooms. So I don't know if that's something we can consider and look at. I don't know what size building it would be. I don't even know if EMS is even interested anymore. There was some discussion about that. To the west, I don't know if that area to the west of the pipeline crossing is enough area, and that's part of this property, I believe. I don't know if that's.
Just looking for something along 322.
Gary, we would certainly, I have no problems with that. The only issue is going to be is it will probably impact our open space calculations, and so obviously there have to be some consideration for that. Obviously for us, it's land that the HOA is going to be maintaining. Nobody's really going to go in that area, so we would have no objection to exploring that opportunity.
And it's strictly up to the supervisor if they want to pursue that. But that's something we did talk about.
Yeah, and we might have,
putting the cart in front of the horse on it, that might be something we could investigate during the minor, include that as a minor subdivision rather than a major.
And I would take it right out of.
It would take it right out of the calculation, is that?
Okay. The 322 setback in the sidewalk, I know that's it's in the ordinance. The safety concern is to make sure that if what happens there, it not only protects the sidewalk it's decided upon, also the facilities that are there as well.
Yeah, we're fine with that. I mean, that's really, obviously, it's either we put the road guard improvements in or we pay a fee to move it. So that's probably control, I think, it's really the township safety. So I'm concerned which way we'll go with that.
And I think it depends on what universe of sidewalk.
Yeah.
And it requires kind of approval as well, which is something very technical and very challenging.
So I'm pointing at this area, I mean, if it was looked at to connect this driveway over to the tennis courts, I think here Horton's primary concern is having a full sidewalk frontage that encourages people to go where folks aren't necessarily going to be looking for pedestrians. Is that fair?
And on both ends of the property, there is no sidewalk. I'm assuming that the township's not in a position to do any sort of proceedings to force the sidewalks to be installed there, so we're going to be encouraging people to walk through an area on a busy highway that just terminates. And then, I don't know what the right way is, issues on the adjoining property. It's up to us earlier. We'll refer to the township's engineer and township solicitor and the planning commission to give us guidance as to how to make it.
I know this may be a little preliminary, but do you know what you're going to be restricting as far as in your covenants and restrictions? For example, pools, sheds. And where I'm going with this is, I think you should incorporate into your stormwater design like a maximum size shed that any lot can have, and that would be included in your stormwater design, as well as, I don't know how pools are affected by stormwater design. I imagine there's some area around the pool that's going to be taken into account as impervious. So that, and then put that in your, add that to your covenants and restrictions that the maximum shed size they can have is 10 by 12, 10 by 16, or whatever it is you choose to do, but have that included in your stormwater so that it's not a burden on the township folks when somebody comes in and wants to get a shed and it's going to be wet through stormwater, they can say, you can have a 10 by 16.
Right. Well, under the new MPS guidelines, we'll have to do an impervious charge per lot now listed versus an aggregate total on it. Typically what we do is we typically have.
So the maximum impervious.
Yeah, the maximum impervious. Typically what we do is we take the footprint of our home and add 200 square feet, which allows somebody to 20 by 10 deck or whatever they want. Obviously, if there's options, they could use that for a pool potentially and use course neighbors, patio, and those kind of things that would not be considered against the impervious coverage. But it would be clearly marked on the plan, so the township zoning officer and whatever building code officials have, they'll basically take a reference from the plan. They'll have the as-built from the engineer's office to know what the existing impervious is. Do simple math, and if as long as it works, they can approve the permit.
And this is a full plan community, so we have lawn maintenance contract. So folks won't be mowing their yard, so they shouldn't have lawn mowers. So we're not anticipating sheds, and we can provide our HOA documents to review and make sure that
It's up to you to have whatever you put in your restrictions, but just so that the township staff doesn't have to, go lot by lot when somebody comes in, so that's clear.
Yeah, that's no problem. Also, I should mention that the homes that we're going to be proposing to do out here are going to be a larger product. Basically, it's more than likely it's our Deerfield product. It's 36 foot wide, 30. And they're big. It's a nice quality home. Basically, we sell them typically as single family homes. We're going to use the same model as an attached product. So it's going to be it's a more dressed up model that you'll work on first.
So two-car garage,
two-car driveways. So yeah, I understand that the plan's not it's kind of worried on that, but
Yeah, they're just things that stuck out.
for the investment of
on
course,
that.
with the investment of course, we're going to keep it over sure the planning commission will be putting a large product on these sites that is going to attract a home buyer that's going to be hopefully attractive to the project on campus.
HOA is going to manage your stormwater facilities.
Yes.
I would suggest that we have some language in there, and I know that I talked to Mike, and they do that in some other areas, to do the inspections that meet the MS4 requirements, so that the requirements are the inspections are done by an engineer, they're handed over to the township, and they can add it to their MS4 reporting.
We absolutely, Horton is, as the largest builder in the country, we go a little bit overboard in HOAs. We hire independent research experts to provide those studies. That is included in the budgeting process as well, which is very.
Landscape plan, I know that'll come at some point. I'm sure that from on our end and the supervisor's end, there's some concern about that. Street width, you address street width, parking restrictions. If you widen it to 28 or 30, I guess you're going to have parking on one side be restricted. That was one of my next questions. The question was, are you planning to dedicate the streets? And the question is whether the supervisors are willing to accept the streets.
It would be obviously our intention to that. We'll have that discussed. We'll get the next preliminary plan put together. I'll be discussing that with staff and professionals, and they could hopefully get some feedback from the supervisors as we get closer to the submission date. And the plan's not going to change. The roads are built public standards. It's just a matter of at the meeting, the discussion will seek a recommendation from the planning commission and your recommendation, and the board of supervisors will make the ultimate decision on that.
Would it be your desire to dedicate them?
Yes. We would dedicate public roads with the exception of there's some internal road networks within the parkway that those would stay private.
Do you have your serviceability letters? Do your ready service letters to utilities?
Yes.
And you have enough, there's enough EDUs to serve what you're proposing?
Currently, we have a will serve letter for 176 EDUs. We coordinate in cooperation with the Northern Chester County Municipal Authority, conducted a flow test last year on the Cupola line main. We will be seeking a higher will serve letter by initial conversations with them where they have plenty of capacity based on the flow study. Currently, we have a will serve letter for at least 176 units.
Have you met with Park and Rec?
No.
And I'm not sure you need to meet with Park and Rec now with what you're proposing.
No.
That's something that's recommended in the ordinance that you do that.
I think more than we'll be setting up something with Park and Rec to handle that.
I brought it up to Park and Rec. They had their meeting last week. As we go forward, we can set something up.
The only thing I will say is our intention is still, Warren, myself, and staff have had discussions regarding what amenities within that park. Horton will be installing what amenities would be at the township's desired at a later date. Our intention is to install, we'll be seeking a waiver so we don't have to put the recreational facilities on our land and put it in the public park. And any of the items that we would have been required to go on our land, we will obviously certainly pay for and install in the public park. So it'll be a net for the town.
And I believe the supervisors have, and I'm not speaking for them, but I think they were willing to, that was something that they were willing to work out.
Yeah, and just I should also comment, the part of the Speedway is going to be privately owned. However, we'll be seeking a waiver, and we've had discussions with the township to include that in our open space calculations, since it's technically going to be part of the public facilities, even though it's privately owned. And we've also had discussions over cross easements and whatnot for access to make sure that the township is adequately protected going forward. They can get the park that is open and accessible to all the members of the community.
I have two more questions. It's a lot of units. It's mixed-use residential, and I know you're showing duplexes, the twins, probably because of volume. And the reason why you're not showing a mix of some singles is
Pure density issues. With this arrangement that we're working out with the township, by preserving the racetrack, it's taking the developmental area, then we put additional singles in other homes, and that's what you saw on the previous plan. So it's just a compromise. It's a by right use, and we are assuring the township, and as we get to the further, I'm not sure what your salary requires, but obviously we'll be bringing architectural elevations into the next planning commission meeting to demonstrate the quality of the homes. It basically is, they are single family homes, but they're just attached to them.
If the lot width restriction was different, would you consider singles?
I won't be able to get to the density that would be what.
I don't even know it's possible.
Yeah, well, the thing is that unfortunately, for the owner of the property. As we're all aware, there's been a lot of stops and starts on this project. It's been going through the process forward. At this point here, that would probably require some sort of zoning relief, and the seller, he's getting up there in years. He wants to see this come to fruition at this point, so we're trying to move this along as quickly as possible.
One more question, one more comment. What do you see your market?
Currently?
No. Who you believe your buyers are going to be?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not really versed on that, to be honest with you. I'll have answers for that next time I'm on the entitlements, the technical side. I know what we're building there, I know what the prices will be. I'm not overly familiar with the community, who the potential buyers are, but I'll have an answer for you at our next meeting.
And the last question, I have to ask this.
Yes, sir.
The question was asked earlier, the racetrack stay.
Oh, yeah, as part of the minor modification, before the major is recorded, the minor gets recorded, which gives them their land and their racetrack.
I just had to ask.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was my list. Thanks for the patience. We're going to.
The one question I do have is for the racetrack. Is it going to remain, or once it's subdivided off, are you going to have to now provide so many parking spaces? Like, are we just leaving it the way it is, just so that they understand what would be expected of them if they own it?
Do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, so we actually found the conditional use decision for when the racetrack was improved many years ago.
1976.
1976. And basically, there was a certain amount of area that was allocated at that time for the facility, and they're providing land comparable to that. So, I think the conversation basically is, as long as they can demonstrate that reasonably the area that's there is adequate for what happens at the racetrack, that's
How would you do that? Just so they understand what they're going to have to do.
We've already gone through that, but basically,
Yeah.
we're doing it, we mentioned the conditional use special exception that was granted in 1976, and we have carved off basically the exact piece of land, the same acreage that's specifically described in there. That calls for 3 acres of parking, as well as one of the requirements for the conditional use. So we're meeting all those things. Actually, we're going to preface it this way. One of the main reasons we're doing a minor subdivision than a major subdivision, if we did include that as a major subdivision, it would potentially trigger reviews by the Conservation District and PDS, and then they could mandate improvements upon the land. We just talked to Warren and staff and other folks, and the racetrack as well. By doing it as a minor subdivision, it'll be excluded then from the NPDS program.
I just want to make sure.
Essentially, I started with the view that it was an existing non-conforming use and had every right to just stay where it was in its footprint legally, and it's not a non-conforming use, they actually have approval for it, but same thing, there's nothing that just by drawing lot lines means the township can now force them to do parking.
Well, I just want to make sure that they, put their baselines in the back, so that would be I just want to make sure that they are, that they would understand if we had to do something
Right, there was some preliminary discussions with them, and we did ask them for like a general sketch on the area and some measurements of what areas are currently used when they have their events. And this is fairly consistent.
And Melissa, I would throw in as well, as you notice to the west of the racetrack property, one of the reasons we included that parking area there is to allow, at the meeting that we had at the property seller's office, attended by pretty much everybody, all the professionals and myself in this room, it was expressed that there was a need potentially for overflow parking for certain events. I believe on Halloween, they have a large gathering there, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the reason that that parking space is put over there, even though it's going to be the public park.
Township.
It's a public lot, so it will allow for additional parking on top of what the current parking is at the racetrack.
Some people bring their campers
Right, and they did give us dimensions, you know,
And
the
also-
area that the racetrack typically uses, so you can see
And
that
Beth and
and put out.
And Beth and Nate will clean all that up with the easements and the agreements. Obviously, we're going to need an access agreement from the raceway to allow for, we're using their existing entrance to get to the public park because we don't want to entertain another driveway permit for PennDOT. And then there's going to be a pedestrian easement so that somebody could walk from the east part to the west part through the raceway property.
Erin?
I would just reiterate the roadway width, I think is really important. I think having too narrow of a road in a development is a nightmare for the residents for years to come. Inevitably, people are gonna have gatherings, cars are gonna be parked on the street. So just making sure that that's wide enough.
Yeah, we would probably want to go for 28 foot. Typically, when you get into a subdivision like this, number one, we want to, the narrower the road is, you get more traffic calming. You're not going to get speed through this. It's obviously going to be a relatively dense subdivision. There's going to be kids playing in the street, et cetera, et cetera. More so, again, not knowing the community as well as I probably should. I'm assuming that there will be the opportunity that people that will be taking the cut through from 322 up to Cupola Road rather than going to the intersection below, and vice versa if they find that to be a faster way to go. So that's the reason we proposed the 24-foot car path. This basically is a traffic calming measure.
I don't know that people will cut through. I think
Well, it's really that, it's just a matter of, 30 feet's probably a little bit wide. Well, if we could get this in the thing, because I think 30 feet's probably a little bit too wide because it will cause people, there are open spaces and long stretches that people will unfortunately get velocity on. 28 is probably a reasonable compromise because it provides parking on one side of the street.
28 is the minimum we would allow to have parking on one side, and just with the density, with the short driveways, there is a need for overflow parking.
Exactly.
So,
If you go with roll curb
Yeah.
instead of the slant curb,
Yeah, we're
no,
doing
you said that backwards.
no, go instead of roll curb instead of slant curb. You can pick up a little bit more on parking.
Oh, so now you flipped your position?
I did.
Okay, don't confuse me,
No,
Gary.
I still prefer the slant curb, but I think in this situation, if you want to make it work a little better, you run the roll curb, and you can mount the roll curb, at least before the gutter.
And that's what we're proposing.
And then also I was gonna say, I do think that there should be some sort of recreational facilities for this development, especially in the back part. The ones up by the front could easily walk to the park, but I think it would be nice to have some top lot or, something in that back portion.
We agree entirely. This is not depicted on here. We just want you to know that there will be top lots probably right where the cursor, a little bit north of the cursor there.
Yeah.
Right on that lot there, there's a road up on the easements. And that's why we're at 208 lots. We're anticipating feedback as that you're providing this evening, so. Unfortunately, we'll be, more than likely, we'll be losing some lots, some density to accommodate certain other amenities.
And then lastly, since the township is essentially giving up 5 acres to the racetrack, will there be any condition that, say the racetrack 20 years from now sells, that land would first right of refusal or come back to the township or something along those lines?
They're pretty good, because that's actually a discussion Warren and I have been contemplating now that obviously we want to make sure that in the scenario unfortunately that I looked at is that for some reason the racetrack ceases operation. And that's a discussion that Beth and Dave, myself, Warren will have to figure out some sort of agreement that's acceptable to the racetrack that would also protect the township in the future. Again, whether it's a ROFO. The only issues on that are going to be in the event that the racetrack would have liens on public property. That gets a little challenging to provide title at that point, to the township. But
Yeah, I think there needs to be something there, because essentially it is, the township's giving out 5 acres to give to them.
And it's right in the middle of the park
Yeah,
area,
yeah.
so.
In the absence of the track, it would be great additional parking.
Sure,
Yeah, no, we're aware of that. I think, I haven't been part of conversations, but I would suspect the track will be open to that if they're.
Yeah, I would love to
I
know.
did.
To them.
Yeah.
So Erin, I did speak to the racetrack about that, and it's fine with the conditions. Should they cease operation, the land without cost will be referred back,
Okay.
because it's a donation.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I spoke with Mike Kelly about that. Yeah. Yeah.
I started around. Yeah, so one of the things that we would just put out there is additional investigation on our part.
Sir, could you just state your name?
Oh, sorry, I'm Patrick Burwell. I sit on the board with I grew up in Mike and we used to part in these conversations last 6 months.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So one of the things we just wanted to look into on our side is exactly how we future-proof this for both the racetrack and the town. Because there's a lot of different scenarios that we could play in, and to us, at least initially through our initial feedback from council, is that's how we have to make sure, because we're a nonprofit, that we carefully word the deed so that both the township and the racetrack are protected, and we achieve all our goals, right? Which is making that just an amazing focal point of the community, right? For years and years and years to come, long beyond, obviously, my tenure.
Okay, that's it for me, thanks.
Yeah.
That's fine. The 2 big questions are, why? Why are we doing this? And 2, how does it benefit the community? Other than carving off the 5 acres for the racetrack, which is clearly very important, how does the rest of this benefit the community?
So the public parkland is certainly a benefit to the community along 322. Every developer acknowledges it does bring in new people and traffic, but building permit fees, additional taxes, things like that, there is a revenue component to this.
Now, cost of community services studies that have been done for decades show that additional development is more expensive than legal land. So no, it's not going to bring additional benefit. But go on.
And we'll agree to disagree, but I hear your point. This 130 acre property. The relative density is quite low, all things considered. Yes, it is a larger number of units. Some of the area is undevelopable. There are easements and things like that. But all things considered, would probably be slightly below 200 lots on 130 acres. That is a low density development, albeit it is a larger number of housing units. And this is the area, to answer the question why. In order for a builder to have land to develop, you have to have a seller, you have to have zoning in place, and it has to be in the right location. So all of those things do line up here. And I do understand, I don't think I have an answer you want, but that's the law.
Okay, so you really didn't answer my question about how it benefits the community. Most of the people that live here and have lived here for some time, and moved here all their lives, they're here because they don't want to be an accident around them. And this isn't the only new development. There's 4 or 5 in progress already here. So the population is suddenly going to go from 8,000 to somewhere between 10 and 11,000 in just a couple of years. That's a dramatic impact on a community that we say we want to keep as rural and tranquil. This doesn't add to rural and tranquil. And you guys, look, let me finish. You guys come in here and say, well, we don't bother to check the culture or know the community. We're just going to come in and knock houses down. And according to your sketch map here, you don't even know what county you're in.
directly again. Again, like Nate said, it's an entry no one here. This is a discussion you more should be having with the supervisors and the zoning hearing board. This is an allowed use as per your community. Your community as a whole, your elected officials, have decided that this is a proper use of this land. And so I appreciate your comments. I understand where you're coming from. However, that is a conversation that you more than likely want to direct to the zoning hearing board, the supervisors, to change the zoning, because this is a purely allowed use. It is a by right plan. We're just playing by the rules.
Yes,
We're playing by the
but that doesn't
But we're
address
playing
your lack of preparedness to come in here and develop a property
Oh,
when you
we're very
don't
well
even know the culture of the community.
We're very well prepared, but guess what?
No, you said that, those were your words.
So I've said I'm not going to dig on this issue. Thank you.
And respect.
Okay, that's so what you said.
I understand that that was specific, that I might not have had certain information about the potential home buyers. I could have answered the questions, but I did want to misspeak. I'm trying to be forthright and honest with the community. We're just coming in as a by right plan. The township told us we could do this by your elected officials and how it proceeded. If you're not comfortable with those decisions, the planning commission, the zoning hearing board, or the supervisors have every right to rezone properties. They did not do that in this case. This is what, when a study was done years ago, whenever the zoning ordinances were passed, the township officials, elected, staff, and residents had input at that time, deemed this to be a proper use of the property.
And if I may, I do take exception of one thing. If we truly didn't care, there wouldn't have been a discussion tonight and the efforts made to the racetrack. When we came in November, it was made loud and clear that the racetrack is very, very important to the community. And it's not every builder that would go to the extent that D.R. Horton is going to. And I know there are others out there that would just slam the fist on the table and say, forget it, we'll jam a by right plan and we'll see in court. And that's the exact opposite of what D.R. Horton is doing in this case. So I do have to disagree that D.R. Horton is not taking into account culture.
Those were his words, not mine.
No, I was talking specifically about the residents of the property. You're taking my comment out of context, but just leave it at that.
But you still don't know who you're gonna market to.
A company does, that's not my position. My job is to approve.
But you're coming here to talk about your plan. You don't
I'll have
want
a
to be prepared.
very thorough answer for you next time, and I'll have a representative from our sales department here with me as well.
Before we violate the Fair Housing Act, we have rules on, we can't target market to certain communities or say, these types of folks are coming in and these are not. So, Beth, please, I don't want to be very careful, and I think Jeff is couching his words as well. We're happy to talk about price points, we can tell you the general character of the buyer, but we can't talk about specifically who and what types of people or types of family units, things like that. That's a right line. I'm sorry, we just can't cross. I'm sorry, I don't mean to step on your toes or advise your board, but.
Correct.
No, I wasn't talking about family types. I was talking about who are you marketing to? And we don't have the answer tonight, so we will move on from that question.
Well, I will answer that one question. We're marketing to people that are very attracted to your wonderful community down here and want to join your community.
But they're changing the community.
But these are people that are looking at your community. We have looked at your community, said this is a very attractive community. We're willing to invest tens of millions of dollars out here to bring people into your community.
We don't
So you're
want
getting
more people in this community because we want to keep it rural.
okay. Well, that's not a discussion that we should be having here because that's not germane to what we're talking about this evening. That's a zoning issue. If you want to rezone the lands, go ahead and rezone it. I'm just being honest with you.
How many bedrooms does each house have?
There's about 4 bedrooms. 4 bedrooms, typically, a lot of the units will have basements as well. There's some areas that there's some shallow groundwater that will be willing to put basements in. The majority, it's going to be at least a 4-bedroom home, 2-car garage. Well, I would say probably 50 to 60% of the men and women will have a full basement as well.
And roadway, you said you might keep that 20 feet?
That's 28 feet the minimum that's required. We have this at 24, again, this is a sketch plan, as Jen had mentioned. We'll be increasing it to 28 with our next submission.
All I gotta say is that I've been to many fire calls and some of these houses, some of these developments, do we get in there with the working fire apparatus? Many of them are a little bit on the tight side, so I think I'd like to see 30 feet. I know what it's like when you get into a working fire, people want to move fast, people run away, a little bit more space.
We'll sort
We
of
have a lot of these houses around like this, somebody's house is burning, right, the next guy doesn't want his house on fire, so we want to get it there quick, where it's possible.
Yeah, and I agree with you. We'll look at 30 foot, but also the other thing I might actually recommend is, and Jen, we can discuss this as we get further in the process. I think there's certain sections that you might consider a choke point that would slow up your apparatus from getting in there. In those areas, we might just do no parking on both sides of the road to make sure that you have full access. Most of the areas where it's open, straight roads, it's not going to be a choke point. I'm envisioning areas when you get down to this curve down by the baseball field and those type items. That's where if you get somebody parked there, I can understand that you might have an issue bringing a ladder truck through there for, I'm assuming, what, 45 foot ladder truck probably, give or take. So.
Have you done the turning race with the type of fire trucks that they want?
It was done through the previous plan, which had very similar infrastructure. Obviously, we have to redo it, but I think that would be a fair accommodation that we would, with the township cooperation, include ordinances that certain areas would be no parking on both sides of the street. And obviously, I'd give a fire marshal that would review this, but we would have full input from the fire marshal on discussions with them. And I'm assuming your salary requires full turning radius of the largest vehicle that you have in the fire.
We should make sure we have to correct it though for whatever your largest most common environment is.
Correct.
To Levi's point though, it's more than just the turning ratio. It's also the outriggers that come off that ladder truck to keep it stabilized.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, and that's all addressed with the fire marshal. I just asked one. Your fire marshal has a full bite at the apple on this, and obviously we'll comply with any comments that.
You don't be talking to Levi, you'll be talking to him.
Huh?
I said you should be talking to him.
Well, under your salary, we're required to take the largest piece of equipment that your fire department would be going in here, and obviously just Jen's satisfaction and her team's satisfaction that proper turning radiuses and movability. And it goes both ways, we have to do it going up the road, we have to coming south down the road, so that review that's pretty standard, very tight review now in most townships. They take emergency services very seriously.
What is that little building on the pipeline?
That is the township, the pipeline actually has their own structure on there. There's actually an easement that runs along the side of the racetrack property from 322, and that's going to be, I'm not sure what the facility is that they have there, but that's a pipeline facility. I'm told it's a monitoring station.
I'm looking a little bit different approach to this route. The last meeting, I never thought you ever came back in and offered that back up to the racetrack and racetrack community, so I thank you for doing that. Very honest. You did really well.
I will give credit to this man right behind us. This man showed me the light stuff.
Thank you for making that. I'm going to defer any questions I have to work with the preliminary plan. It's presented in front of us, but you guys could have walked out of here and said, you know what, I'm the one that can do it because the zoning is what the zoning is. But if you guys can do that, it shows not to the community that you did do it.
Yeah, and obviously, as Mike Kelly had previously said, the true credit for this should go to Charlie and Betty, the owners of the property. Once we met with them and with the feedback that came through, Charlie he expressed regret to us that he had not put in our contract that the racetrack had to remain. And it was just as an accommodation to a good seller on this property that we were able to have discussions with the township. The seller properly motivated everybody on this particular case, let's just say.
Yeah.
So that's really where the credit goes to.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for looking at it.
Appreciate it.
I think you guys are happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. During our, what is this? I don't know.
Round lot,
Okay, right here. Is that another storm?
We actually had, we'll probably do that as stormwater. We originally had homes there, but we thought it was too close to the wetlands, and we would probably not be able to achieve the buffering requirements there. So that will more than likely, if required, we're dedicating that for stormwater, and anything that we don't get the stormwater will just be vacant open space.
With that comment, are you foreseeing any inlets and stormwater behind the units Are they going to be, by the time you get storm easement down the back of the units, is that going to get too tight for rear yard setbacks? So you might want to widen that road out a little bit if that's not stormwater.
I'm gonna say this, Gary, I actually probably paid Connor to come here, we're gonna let him say something, so.
Okay, Connor, what do you got to say about that?
I mean, typically we utilize swales to the maximum extent practical, but I do see a few areas where we would use the storm easement based on this layout, but we'll flush that out further in the preliminary plan.
Okay, I understand the sketch.
It's a fair question.
We're talking about parking on one side of the road. In some of the denser areas, like that northeast corner, is there realistically enough room to have some, additional on-street parking, just with how many driveways you have on top of each other on both sides of the road? Somebody has their kid's birthday party, like, is that viable, or, is there some consideration you could give to, like, a little overflow lot in some of those areas where there's not more open space?
Yeah, actually, definitely are. Those are some of the things we're considering, like for that area that Gary just mentioned, that little circle there to the south of whatever road we have there. That's the type of areas that, potentially we could do for some overflow parking. I think that, given this plan, I think once we get into the more detailed blow-up designs, there's going to be more parking availability on the roads where the driveways are located. These are 50-foot wide lots. We typically will put the driveways in the middle. It's going to be a 20-foot wide driveway. So there's 30 feet of parking in front of every home as well. So that allows for at least 2 cars there. So for
The scale of the plan is a little deceiving.
Yeah.
It's 1 inch equals 100.
I mean, I know a lot of, if you have like
So,
4 or 5 pack townhome units, it really gets hard. You can say there's on street, but the reality is you can't, or it certainly isn't safe because everybody's backing out into the car right across the street, so.
And those are things we'll consider when it comes to if we were able to add additional top lots and those type of items. That's certainly, we've gone this far. We have everybody.
Throw a little force-based
We're
lot.
everybody's in the same church, same pew, sitting next to each other. We're not going to screw that up. So obviously we'll provide whatever accommodations are feasible.
Jeff, you've done enough townhomes. There's no street parking for townhomes.
I agree.
This is a whole lot better.
Well, actually, believe it or not, Gary, this isn't so bad because basically, for example, if you look at any of these units on the top there, there are 50-foot wide lots. The driveways both will be center loaded, so you have 20-foot and 20-foot, which means that you're going to have 60 feet of open space between two units adjacent to each other, not connected, adjacent to them. For example, if you're looking at over here, guys, 20-foot, 20-foot, which allows 60 feet of parking in between here. Between each unit, so it is a little bit different than a townhouse community. I would agree with you. It's tight, but the key for this is basically to keep the driveways to the middle versus putting the one outside.
And on the preliminary plan, we can detail that out. If we have to have a separate parking plan, or if not, we showed as either striped or just an example, we can show you what that looks
I mean, I think the on-site, I'm sure, meet the requirement, but from a functional standpoint, some of Erin's comments, we want this to work for the people who live here, otherwise they come and yell at the township. Why'd you let them do it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else? Jen?
no, I think that covers most of our comments, and, our office always does open up the opportunity if you want to do a formal sketch plan, once you've taken some of the comments back in, and get a more detailed, comments back before you do your full design, we are open to do that.
And we'll add one comment as Dave had stated at the beginning. To make this work, we are going to need certain waivers. I'm taking Warren's gentle words to be able to say politely in that way, that these will be very reasonable waivers. And basically, almost all of them are going to be associated with allowing for the racetrack to stay and the relocation of the recreational facilities from our property onto the public parkway. That work will be exhausted to their extent. Obviously, there might be some typical engineering style design waivers, but obviously, Jen and Connor had some good conversations about what she feels is an acceptable, reasonable waiver. We will not be bringing anything in here that Jen is not deeming, and Beth and staff is not deeming a reasonable request.
Okay. Anything else? Guess not.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you very much, Travis. We'll see you.
We'll be back in a couple months.
Take your time.
No. We're taking a Speedway approach for this thing. I go real fast in circles. That's what. All right. Take care of you all. Take care of you.
Our next item of business is the zoning hearing board conditional use application, but it's my understanding that they're withdrawn and they're gonna grant an extension.
Correct, they've asked to be placed on the May planning commission agenda.
No one's here for that conditional use application, is that correct?
It's a special.
I'm sorry, it's a special exception. Just wanted to make sure, there's a lot of last minute.
Next item would be other business, and there is a waiver request from Keystone Court. And is there someone here from Keystone Court? You folks from Keystone Court?
That's us.
Okay, you're up.
So just give introduction, I'll let them speak. This is the Keystone Court mobile home park expansion that was, the plan was approved several months ago, a year ago at this point. It was originally designed with the township standard paving cross-section, which is 6 inches of stone base, 4.5 inches of base course, 2 inches of binder, 1.5 inches of wearing. So a total of 8 inches of pavement on top of 6 inches of stone. That is our standard for local minor streets. Their waiver request, I'll read it to you, then they can speak to it, would be to maintain the 6 inches of stone, to eliminate the 4.5 inches of base course, instead put 3 inches of binder down and 1.5 inches of wearing. So that takes the total cross section to 4.5 inches of pavement on top of 6 inches of stone. And they've indicated that that proposed cross section matches the existing paving section within the park. So if you recall, the expansion, you're looking at the park, it's kind of like a U-shape with a connector road. It's adding a road down the side and then expanding to the rear is the expansion. So if you want to comment, further justify your waiver request, and answer any questions the planning commission has.
Sure, I'm Jack Robinson from GMR Engineering, and Jen summarized it well. These streets for this development are private, and they will remain private, have been private since the 1960s. And so we did do it to the public spec, public road specification, that was the original design, but we'd like to have it reduced to the specification we're proposing. One thing I just wanted to note was that the township ordinance, the commercial standard for commercial parking, not commercial drive-out, is actually less than the specification we're proposing. As Jen mentioned, 1.5 we're proposing for the wearing, which matches the commercial spec. We're proposing 3 inches for the next step down, and the commercial spec only 2.5, and then 6 inches of base, which is really the main thrust when it comes to base. The commercial spec is only 3 inches in the ordinance. So we're thicker than the commercial by over 3 inches, 3.5 inches to be exact. So I think that it's more than enough, and it has been more than enough historically for this site. We're matching the spec that's in the front of the site that's been there for many years. That's seen many emergency trucks. So we're simply just trying to match what's there at the park. I think it makes sense.
How do roads hold up in the park? What do they look like now?
The roads, actually, since Mr. Benedict bought it, he had the old roads as mill because they're obviously old, they've been there since the late 60s and 70s. There was alligator somewhat, so he had it milled and paved by the Comm company. So they've been refreshed.
And so that's why we know what the spec is for the original park. They developed well, it's just that they were just getting aged.
So you're asking to reduce the spec by 3.5 inches of asphalt?
Correct, yes, but basically eliminate the asphalt base course. But we're thickening up the second level, so in total, yes, it's about a 3-inch reduction. In total, we have a 10.5-inch spec, which is still a pretty beefy spec for what the use is. And as I mentioned, it's 3 inches, there's 3.5 inches greater than the commercial spec in the ordinance.
Commercial parking.
Commercial parking and drive aisle.
Jen, what do you think?
My comments and thoughts to Gary when we looked at this and talked earlier in the week when he asked me the same question. I wouldn't consider it if it was a whole new development with all brand new streets that were being consistent in, like Struble Ridge, which was built to, I believe, the original standard. This expansion is...
I mean, it was built to the current standard.
Yes, it was built to the current standard, thanks, Beth. The expansion is the bolts in the rear, there's a side road, so it's not that all the traffic goes on that area. So it's balanced. I would have more concerns also if it was a private, like residential community with individual lots, like Knott Hill or like D.R. Horton, because there is a greater chance in those cases that it will become a public street. We had that happen with the Knott Hill development. They were originally supposed to be private, they became public. Now, that is a substantial reduction from 8 inches of paving to 4.5. Perhaps there's a balance that they want to see, in there, but it is the owner's responsibility to maintain safe roadways. The township does do annual mobile home park inspections. The integrity of the roadway and passability of that is part of that inspection. So we do have oversight on the continual maintenance.
What kind of vehicles come in there? Trash trucks? How big are the trucks that come in and bring the units in and out?
Just a standard trash truck that, I believe it's AJ Lazinski that goes through.
And what kind of, I guess they're not very big, you don't set them with a crane?
No.
The wheels stay on them?
Correct, and they roll in, I think, in 6 or 7 axles, so it is spread out.
My concern is you don't have curbs, so you don't have anything to hold it. My opinion is that we can meet somewhere in the middle. I don't know, what's the thickest set of base course could go down? Could it go down to 4? The base is really the stability. Well, it starts with your sub base, but if your sub base is solid and your stone, but that's a big reduction.
Well, because the township ordinance for commercial is only those 3 levels, and it's less than that. It's only 1.5, 2.5, and 3 inches of stone. We have 1.5, 3 inches of binder and 6 inches of stone wall. So we're exceeding the commercial standard, which, and we also have good soils at the site and that have been tested through time. Because what you see out there has been there for many years and held up.
Do you guys do the compaction, like loaded truck test before they put stone down?
Correct.
Will they call you for that?
Yeah, we do a proof roll, before they put the stone down. Oftentimes we'll do a proof roll again, depending on how the weather's been or if it's been over winter, rainy season, maybe a proof roll again after the stone as well.
Not many sites have a history, have a history that you can go by, so that's a good thing we have here. you have a solid history.
But there will be more traffic, right, because there's more units.
Yes, yes, but it's car traffic, it's not heavy-duty traffic that goes through this site. And again, these are private roads, these are maintained, there's not going to be, I know the ordinance speaks to the public standard for private because of what Jen mentioned, that a lot of times these developments get turned over, but this is not one of them, because this doesn't have, all these lots are owned, or the whole development is owned by one owner, this is not going to be one of those developments that is owned over, so there's no owners in the township.
I don't know, what do you all think?
So there's no, the reasoning is strictly because of the expense to do more, there's nothing keeping you from meeting the specs.
We feel it's unnecessary, number one, and there's also, it would also help cut fill out there. We have a fair amount of dirt that we're trying to, matter of fact, I work with Jen to try to modify some of the grading so we can help with that. And this would help with that as well. And just to do it unnecessarily, to me, it would kind of kill two birds with one stone. We could put the stadiums back, I think that is really necessary, and also help with some cut fill at the same time.
I'm going to defer to what Jen recommends. Do we in the middle? Would you feel more comfortable if they?
I mean, I don't think we have a mechanism, just looking behind it. We don't, unless they were to redo the front, we don't have a mechanism to require them to change what's in the front. So what's in the front in the existing part of the development will always stay. The extra traffic will also be going over those, existing street sections. So whether we meet somewhere in the middle,
Is this just for the new streets?
this would just be,
But they're on the side, right? They're not the main drag when you come in and go around. These are the ones that when you go in now, it's to the left that they're digging out.
yeah, I can.
So I feel like it's not even the main coming in and going out, right?
Right.
It's gonna be
Right.
like off to the
Yes,
side.
it's a lesser used pavement because it'll be in the back. And we did try to, in some ways, meet in the middle, in that the ordinance middle section,
Yeah.
the
I'm trying to
hearing,
get to
or
the development plan.
the ordinance binder course is for the second section is 2 inches, and we're increasing that to 3. So by eliminating one section, yes, but we're also increasing the binder.
Well, I feel like they own them. If the township's out there once a year doing their inspections, then if they feel like the roads need to be fixed, then,
But can we make them fix it?
yeah, we should make them.
Yeah, any deficiencies that arise as part of the inspection have to be addressed prior to them being issued an annual mobile home park license, and we go through enforcement action.
Did you tell them to fix the roads
and
recently, or did they just choose to do it? Was there
I
something
believe they chose to do them. I don't do the mobile home park inspections. I
After
don't know off
the-
the top of my head, but
After the purchase of the park, we redid this existing sewer and upgraded the infrastructure of the water. And after that process, we decided that it was in need of a full repaving. That's what we did.
so up there, you can see this area. This is the existing. It's one-way traffic. I believe it's in this way. Right now, there's a little, cut through here and around. So when you come in, there will be the option to turn left, where some of the newer homes may be. This loops back around, and then you go back out the existing drive.
And they all one way?
Yeah, this stays one way. As far as I can remember, so this will continue, this will be in, and I believe this is also in. And then-
Correct.
Yeah, they join here and come out. So, in this case, it is the new traffic. It's what basically is on the new roads. You're not having double dose of traffic. It's the existing roadways that are actually going to get hit with more traffic.
How about 4 inches? How about 4 inches of 19 millimeter? You're gonna, it's not gonna give you that third application. So, you know, if the concern is to save money, you're gonna put 4 inches down instead of 3. 3 inches, unless they're really good, could be end up a little less.
Yeah, I mean,
It can take you to where there's 2.5 inch and inch and a half, and it didn't hold up very well.
I think, I mean, the simplification is part of this too, so it won't keep you in 3 layers. So,
You would pick up, what I'm suggesting is, against what you're suggesting, is add an inch to the 19 millimeter. So it'd still be 2 applications, but you get a little bit thicker base.
So from 3.5 to 4 inches, so
3.5 to 4 for the 19 millimeter, no 25 millimeter, an inch and a half.
I'm not sure you can put down 4 inches and find it in more.
But you can put 4.5 down, up to 25. That's a denser mix, bigger aggregate.
I just Googled it quickly. I'd have to look up off the top
Well,
of
if
my
you
head.
can't apply it at 4 inches, then what I'm suggesting doesn't work.
I mean, you are still having a reduction of material, even if they have to do,
2.5 inches
Cool.
reduction in material.
if they have to, you were saying that being able to only do it in like two
Yeah.
lifts around.
So they'll put their base down
But they-
because all the activity is going to happen on the base.
Right.
So, you know, all your construction, setting all your units is probably going to happen on the base. That's where your abuse is going to be. Then you're going to put your wearing on at the very end.
Right.
And, you know, I don't think you're going to want to be doing all your work on top of your wearing.
Right, so I think even if you go to 4 inches of binder, that's fine. They may need to do it in 2 passes, but it's still, right, they're still reducing the amount of asphalt overall. So we would just want to ensure that that is the proper lifts are used if they go to 4 inches. I'm fine with 4 inches, you know, 1.5, that gives us 5.5 versus the original 8.
They want to eliminate one pass. That's really what they want to do. That's your,
Right, or
that's
just
your
the quantity of
that's your
material
savings.
also.
yeah, it's simplifying it, you know, I think 4 layers is a little bit much for this application, so, yeah, I think you'd be agreeable with, so 1.5 wearing, 4 inches of binder, and then 6 inches of base. That's what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting.
You'd be agreeable with that?
I'm just one person, so the rest of you's got to agree to it or not agree to it.
They're taking care of it anyway. They break it down, and they have to maintain it. I was fine with 3 inches.
We're going to make a motion for the 3 inches. I'm just saying that's what, I just think that's what we like. That's my opinion. We need a motion and a second to give them a recommendation.
So I'll make a motion for Gary's suggestion of the, as long as Jen.
As long as it can be applied.
Yeah.
We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have a motion and a second? Any questions? Do we need to do a roll call vote, or can we do it with a voice vote? Let's do a roll call vote.
So first, we have a motion and a second for 1.5 inches of wearing, 4 inches of binder, atop 6 inches of stone base. Gary? Yeah, you're there.
Yes.
Melisa, Erin? Okay. The ayes have it. We'll send you documentation of that. Well, it'll
You're
be.
going to verify that you could.
Yeah, if it needs to be.
When are you going to do this? If we find out we can't do it in a 4-inch width,
Then we can modify it before it goes
we
to the
should
board of
probably
supervisors.
talk again.
Yeah.
Or let the supervisors decide.
Because it's their decision ultimately.
Right.
I mean, it'll have to go to them in May.
Yeah. I'll follow up with you in the next week or so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're back to public comments.
No,
No.
Did I miss?
there's,
Oh, yes, skip right over that. That was not intentional.
Yes, it was. We're not there yet.
wait, next change.
So the question is, for those of us on the planning commission that want to serve on the comp plan task force,
I do.
So I've got Melissa, Erin, and Susan.
how much time? I don't know, the last time took a lot of time.
It's about 12 to 18 months.
I'm not trying to discourage you from doing it in any way, but how about it, Melissa? It took a long time. Spent a lot of time. It's here, it's usually sometimes 2 meetings a month, sometimes just 1 meeting a month. It just depends on, on what the direction back to, who's the consultant, did the supervisor decide?
The Brandywine Conservancy.
Conservancy. Okay. Troy?
Like I said, yes.
I saw that. Oh, I don't know if you can see it.
Well, I heard her, I was reiterating her. And
So it looks like we
so I've got Melissa, Erin, Susan, and Levi.
Lisa Kaufman
And
is
you?
not here, had some family business, but if he wants to, could he say yes at a later date?
Yes, the Conservancy is just asking for the task force members so they can start working alongside the borough to start setting the date. So obviously, if you would like to join later, you can. You just
I have no idea what he's thinking on that. I just-
Okay, is someone capable on the planning commission reaching out to see if he has interest?
Yeah, he just had to be out of town for a few days.
Okay, so if you could email me yes or no, Susan, and then I can pass that on next week. to the Conservancy. Thank you.
Now, public comments.
Yes. If I
Anybody
find
on the right?
room for those.
Wow, James.
Yeah, I'm listening all through the DR Horton, got a couple of things here, I'll try to blow through them and we won't get out of here. This community and others like it have been burned badly before by builders who promise lots of stuff and then leave promises unkept. So a condition of any approval should be to get what they promise up front. If they are caring about this community, they should be willing to do that as a gesture of goodwill. And with 4-bedroom houses that have 2 parking spaces each, I'm guessing their target market is people who don't have kids or friends. So, what's the answer? I heard that they don't want to put a sidewalk on 322. People already walk and bike on 322 every day. I've seen people hit on 322, pedestrians. Sidewalks, I figure, would eventually be expanded someday anyway. Every bit of sidewalk that would be out along 322 would be helpful to the people who are out there anyway. And
Can I
if
say
they
something
don't
real quick?
exist, there's no one for them to tie into.
Can I say something about the sidewalks? The problem with the sidewalks is unless the township takes an easement, now that development is going to be responsible for people walking on their sidewalk. So if somebody walks on their sidewalk and gets hurt, it's now that HOA's responsibility to take care of that. So just an FYI, I'm not encouraging anybody to walk on a sidewalk along 322 that doesn't have an easement on it that the township owns.
Okay. Well, however, the liabilities play out. People are out there risking their lives every day. I'm one of them. And somebody pointed out there are no bathrooms in the park. I wanted to just kind of highlight that again. I don't know if you've ever been with a small child. With a small child in the park in an emergency, but I didn't see any bushes in the park either. So somebody's got to do something there. Lots of the space they set aside for the park is space that is often underwater. So hopefully there's some plans to deal with that. Otherwise, we're kind of getting the short end of the stick there. The racetrack land is already wet. There's lots of impervious coverage we're going to add next to it. I hope that doesn't create a situation where that water is finding its way onto the racetrack and we're having, we can't use the racetrack anymore just because it won't run off. And if making this a nicer place to live involves them making fewer houses, that's always an option for them. And I did also look at consumeraffairs.com and highlights there, DR Horton Homes, 93 5-star reviews, 24 star reviews, 33 star reviews, 139 2-star reviews, 1,287 1-star reviews. Not my words, I read that right off the internet, consumeraffairs.com. Don't sue me, sue them. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
Real quick, I'm just a little
Thank you.
concerned about the traffic light being focused on Chestnut Tree Road. Don't get me wrong, I've been asking for a light at Chestnut Tree Road forever. But if this development has an exit on 322 and Cupola, you know everybody's gonna go onto Cupola to get out, because there's no way you're gonna turn east onto 322 out of that development without getting hit. So then what's gonna happen is everyone's gonna come down Cupola, come around Greason and Chestnut to go out to light at Chestnut. And the impact on the surrounding community is much greater. So I understand that it's in a situation you don't want to light at Verdell, light at Cupola, light at Chestnut Tree, but we also got to minimize the impact on the surrounding community from this new development. And we're looking at right now at least like 400 more cars, which is really significant, especially when Cupola is so incredibly small. It's really narrow. And you do have Amish on that road too, so we got to keep that in mind. Just one last thing, does D.R. Horton have to go back to the sewer authority with this draft plan then?
They'll have to go through sewer authority and water authority approvals throughout the preliminary planning process. They get their design reviewed, make sure they have enough capacity and EDUs available, but that's part of the preliminary design process.
Because I saw with their last plan, they only had 180 EDUs approved because of the flow issues.
176, he said he has.
Yeah.
He said that earlier, at 176. We asked that.
But he's asking for 208, so he knows that he's not going to be able to get to.
They'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
That's
But the
a
sewer
them
authority-
problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They won't get approvals here unless they have those approvals.
Yeah.
As far as traffic is, he said they were through the scope. They're scoping can't leave. Okay?
I'll have to look back at what's been done to that extent. I mean, this is a
Because
different plan, so I would think that it still
They're
has
gonna
to
have
be
to-
revisited.
they're gonna have to go back.
It would have to be
It's a scoping.
revisited, yes.
I think they're probably just assuming that if it's less houses, it's less traffic, then there's probably not more, but. Correct.
Right, because they used to
Correct.
have two.
In
I
terms
think
of how the cars come in and out.
It went to one.
Yeah, it's a different analysis.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no one's going to turn left on the 322. They want their lives intact, so.
Not after they try it once.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they think about it another way. Anyone else?
Go ahead, okay. I'll know after you.
My name's Aurora Green, 190 Pine Tree Drive. I just have to speak up, along with other people. It's really disheartening and sad for me to see that the way that Honeybrook is getting developed and the choices that we're choosing for builders. Clearly, money is their ultimate goal, financial. It's just really sad that you're not putting the citizens of Honeybrook at the top. It's these builders, they come in and they say what they want, and we sort of, different waivers, and we do this and that to please them, and that development is a disgrace, really. It's packed, there's no room. I just can't believe that that's what you want for your community, so it's very disappointing to me.
We haven't given, no one has given any waivers. We haven't recommended any, and the supervisors haven't granted any.
No,
To this point.
Okay, thank you. Yes. But, I mean, you make a recommendation, but the board of supervisors, I guess, have the final decision.
That's correct.
So, it's just disappointing to see what they want for our area. I think that people came here to be rural, as a couple people said. So I think we keep recommending that to them, and hopefully we can change our board of supervisors.
Okay, Jason Williams, 3561 Horseshoe Pike, and I am just going to add on to what Shane said earlier. I've got up on my phone the Facebook page for Shady Construction by D.R. Horton. That development, we went through this a few years ago, has a reputation for doing shoddy work, for using the cheapest labor possible, for lying, for backing out of promises, for breaking things, and they're going to be long gone by whenever any of this happens. They're going to be long gone, and all of us in this room, unless you move away, are going to be stuck with the bill with the increased traffic and more people, more kids in our schools, and whatever it's things that D.R. Horton didn't do, which everyone thought they were going to do or just rolled over for.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? So that concludes the public comment section. Our next action item would be to adjourn the meeting. You can see that the dates, the future dates of upcoming meetings in May. So what I'm asking for is a motion and a second to adjourn.
Any motion to adjourn?
Second. There's a motion and a second, all in favor of adjournment? Say aye. Opposed? Thank you.
I am generational lesbian. Right? All I hear is we moved here, we moved here to live, and now we don't have what makes anybody think we wanted you to move here. You know, I'm ready to go off. I'm really ready to go.